Hello and welcome to our video on how to create a disclaimer for your YouTube material. A disclaimer is a statement that protects you from legal liability if someone disputes the content of your video. It is critical to be aware of the potential legal dangers associated with sharing information and ideas online while making material for YouTube. A disclaimer can shield you from legal liability if someone objects to the content of your video. It is a statement that you may place in your video or in the video description to make it clear that the views and opinions stated in the video are your own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the viewer or any other party. There are a few crucial components that should be included in a YouTube disclaimer. These are some examples. 1. A disclaimer stating that the views and opinions stated in the video are your own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the viewer or any other party. 2. A disclaimer stating the content in the video is intended for educational or entertaining purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. 3. A liability disclaimer, which indicates that you cannot be held liable for any damages or losses that may occur as a result of following the information or advice offered in the video. 4. A disclaimer that you do not support any product or service featured in the film unless you have a partnership or sponsorship with the firm. It is critical to use clear and simple wording that is easy for visitors to grasp when drafting a disclaimer. It's also critical to have your disclaimer visible in your video or in the video description so that people are aware of it before watching the video. A disclaimer is a statement that warns viewers of the limitations of your material as well as any potential hazards involved with following the advice or information in your video. If you're starting a YouTube channel, you should put a disclaimer in the video description to protect yourself from legal liabilities. We'll go through the fundamentals of drafting a disclaimer for your YouTube channel in this video. To begin, it is critical to recognize that a disclaimer is not a substitute for legal counsel. If you're not sure what type of disclaimer you need, always speak with a lawyer. It is critical to be precise and detailed when drafting a disclaimer. Begin by clarifying that the material of your video is just for informative or entertainment purposes and should not be construed as professional advice. If your movie contains any advice or information that may be regarded risky or harmful, you should specify that the viewer should seek the counsel of a professional before undertaking any of the activities detailed in the video. A disclosure about any affiliate links or sponsored content in your video is also required. If you're marketing a product or service, make it clear that you may earn a commission or money for any transactions made via the links in your video. Finally, if your film contains any copyrighted or trademarked content, you should include a disclaimer. If you use photos, music, or other content that does not belong to you, you must mention that you do not own the rights to the material and that it is being used under fair use or with the consent of the copyright owners. Finally, a disclaimer is an essential component of every YouTube channel. You may protect yourself from legal responsibility and ensure that your viewers understand the restrictions of your material by inserting a disclaimer in the description of your videos. If you're confused about the type of disclaimer you need, always consult a lawyer. When discussing how to create a disclaimer for a YouTube channel, it's critical to examine the exact sorts of video you'll be producing as well as the potential hazards linked with that content. Here are some examples of different sorts of material and disclaimers that may be required. If you're starting a culinary channel, you should add a warning explaining the hazards of making specific dishes or using certain kitchen equipment. You may say something like, "Please take caution while cooking food and always follow established food safety procedures." If you're starting a DIY or home renovation channel, you should add a warning explaining the hazards of doing particular projects. You may include a remark like, "Please exercise caution and seek expert advice if you are unsure about any part of this project." If you're starting a health and wellness channel, you should add a disclaimer explaining the limits of the material in your videos. You may insert a statement such as, "This material is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice." Before making any modifications to your diet or exercise plan, always contact a healthcare expert. If you're going to start a product review channel, you should add a notice concerning paid material and affiliate connections. You may say something like, "Please keep in mind that some of the links in this video are affiliate links, and I may get a commission or compensation if you make a purchase through them." In addition to these examples, it is essential to consider general legal liabilities and speak with a lawyer, who can give particular information on what type of disclaimer your YouTube channel requires. When considering how to draft a disclaimer for a YouTube channel, keep in mind the legal ramifications of your video and how a disclaimer may assist shield you from any liabilities. Here are a few things to remember while creating a disclaimer. Be detailed and concise. A disclaimer should be simple to read and identify the limitations of your material as well as any potential hazards involved with following the advice or information presented in your video. Consult an attorney. If you're not sure what type of disclaimer you need, it's always a good idea to check with a lawyer who can give particular advice depending on your content and the laws in your region. Include a notice regarding sponsored content and affiliate links. If you're marketing a product or service in your videos, make it clear that you may get a commission or money for any transactions made via the links in your video. Include the following notice for copyrighted or trademark material. If you use photos, music, or other content that does not belong to you, you must mention that you do not own the rights to the material and that it is being used under fair use or with the consent of the copyright owners. Maintain consistency. Include a disclaimer in all of your videos. Be upfront. Include the disclaimer at the beginning of the video, in the video description, or both. Be truthful. Do not include any inaccurate or misleading statements in your disclaimer. Be generic. Disclaimers can be general, meaning they apply to all videos on your channel, or specific, meaning they are customized to the content of a given video. In conclusion, a disclaimer is an essential component of any YouTube channel since it may shield you from legal liability while also ensuring that your viewers understand the restrictions of your material. Include a disclaimer in all of your films, make it prominent, and consult a lawyer if you're unclear what type of disclaimer you need. Remember to be honest and forthright in your disclaimer, and to use it consistently. A generic disclaimer is a statement that tells viewers that the video material is for informative or entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. This sort of warning is frequently used in videos that offer recommendations, lessons, or other types of advice. To protect yourself from legal liability, provide a generic disclaimer in all of your films. Affiliate disclaimer. When a video contains affiliate links or sponsored material, an affiliate disclaimer is required. An affiliate link is a sort of link that allows the video's author to receive a commission or remuneration for any purchases made via the link. An affiliate disclaimer notifies the audience that the video's producer may get a commission or remuneration for any purchases made through the video's links. This sort of disclaimer is necessary for openness as well as compliance with Federal Trade Commission, FTC, requirements. Medical disclaimer. When delivering medical advice or information in a video, a medical disclaimer is required. This sort of disclaimer notifies the viewer that the material presented is solely for educational purposes and should not be construed as medical advice. It also encourages the viewer to consult a healthcare expert before making any dietary or activity modifications. To protect oneself from legal liability, it is critical to add a medical disclaimer in films that contain health or medical information. Legal disclaimer. When delivering legal advice or information in a video, a legal disclaimer is required. This sort of disclaimer tells the viewer that the material supplied is solely for educational purposes and should not be construed as legal advice. It also recommends the viewer to get particular legal guidance from a lawyer. To protect oneself from legal responsibility, use this sort of disclaimer when providing legal advice or information. Copyright disclaimer. When incorporating copyrighted or trademarked content in a video, a copyright disclaimer is required. This sort of disclaimer tells the audience that the video's author does not own the rights to the material and that it is used under fair use or with permission from the copyright owners. This disclaimer is necessary to avoid any issues with copyright infringement and to protect oneself from legal liability. Product disclaimer. When evaluating items in a video, a product disclaimer is required. This sort of disclaimer notifies the audience that the video's producer was compensated for the review or that the product was given to them for free. This sort of disclaimer is necessary for openness and compliance with FTC requirements. Earnings. When presenting information regarding earning money through various techniques or marketing a money-making opportunity, an earnings disclaimer is required. This sort of disclaimer notifies the audience that the video's producer makes no promises concerning revenue and that outcomes may vary. This disclaimer is necessary to prevent making false claims or making misleading statements, as well as to protect oneself from legal consequences. Warranty. When giving information on a product that comes with a warranty disclaimer is required. This sort of disclaimer informs the viewer of the warranty's restrictions. This disclaimer is essential for avoiding misinterpretation and protecting oneself from legal liability. It's crucial to remember that these are just examples, and the sort of disclaimer necessary may differ based on the video's content and the regulations in your country. If you're confused about what type of disclaimer you need, it's usually best to speak with a lawyer, who can give particular advice depending on your content and the regulations in your region. A few disclaimer samples. 1. The material offered in this video is for informative or entertaining purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Please get the advice of a professional before undertaking any of the activities depicted in this movie. 2. Please keep in mind that some of the links in this video are affiliate links, and I may get a fee or money if you make a purchase using them. 3. This material is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Before making any modifications to your diet or exercise plan, always contact a healthcare expert. 4. This material is provided for educational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. For particular legal advice, always consult a lawyer. 5. I do not own the graphics, audio, or any content utilized in this movie. It is used in accordance with fair usage or with permission from the copyright holder. 6. I was compensated for this review or the product was given to me for free. 7. I make no promises concerning profits, and outcomes may vary. This device comes with a insert kind of warranty. For further details, please refer to the user manual. These are just a few examples. Keep in mind that the sort of disclaimer necessary may vary based on the content of the video and the legislation in your location. If you're confused about what type of disclaimer you need, it's usually best to speak with a lawyer, who can give particular advice depending on your content and the regulations in your region. The material offered in this video is for informative or educational purposes only and is not meant as professional advice. The author's views and opinions are completely his or her own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or stance of any organization or institution. Before acting on the basis of this video's content, the viewer should always obtain professional counsel. The producer of this video will not be held accountable for any damages or losses incurred as a consequence of using the information included in this video. This generic disclaimer example is intended to tell viewers that the video content is for informative or educational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. It also says that the thoughts and opinions stated in the video are entirely those of the author and do not necessarily reflect any organization's or institution's official policy or viewpoint. Earnings example disclaimer. The earnings and income statements presented in this video are estimations of what we believe you could earn. There is no guarantee that you will perform similarly. If you depend on our data, you must take the risk of underperforming. When particular income statistics are utilized and attributed to an individual or business, that individual or firm has earned that amount. There is no guarantee that you will perform similarly. Any and all statements or representations about income earnings made on this website should not be interpreted as average earnings. There is no guarantee that any former accomplishments or past outcomes in terms of income earnings may be utilized to predict your future success or results. This is an example of an earnings disclaimer. It warns the audience that the earnings and income assertions made in the video are estimates, and there is no guarantee that the viewer will perform similarly. The warning also adds that if the viewer relies on the figures in the video, they must take the chance that they will not perform as well. Where should the disclaimer go? Depending on the structure and topic of your movie, you can include disclaimers in a variety of places. Here are a few examples of frequent places to include a disclaimer. 1. Video description. The video description, which is the text box that displays below the video on YouTube, is one of the most typical areas to insert a disclaimer. This is an excellent location for a disclaimer since it is accessible to viewers before they begin viewing the movie. 2. Video start. Another location to insert a disclaimer is in the video's opening. A disclaimer can be included as a title card or as an overlay at the beginning of the video before the real material begins. 3. Video closing. Before the credits roll, you may put a disclaimer at the conclusion of the video. If you want to warn viewers of the limitations of your material or any potential hazards involved with following the advice or information presented in your video, this is an excellent alternative. 4. Video annotations. You may add annotations to your videos on YouTube, which are text or voice bubbles that display at particular periods in the video. Annotations can be used to insert a disclaimer that displays throughout the video. 5. Website. If you have a website linked to your YouTube channel, you may also put a disclaimer there. If you wish to offer more specific information about the limitations of your material or any potential hazards involved with following the advice or information presented in your video, this is an excellent choice. It is critical to notice that the disclaimer should be visible and accessible to the visitor regardless of where it is placed. It should be clear, easy to understand, and not obscured in any manner. Finally, while developing material for YouTube, it is critical to include a disclaimer. It can insulate you from legal culpability if someone objects to the content of your video. You can make it obvious that the thoughts and opinions stated in your video are your own and not necessarily those of the audience or any other party by putting a disclaimer. You may also assist protect yourself by inserting a disclaimer of liability and a notice that the material offered in your film is for educational or entertaining purposes only. Remember to use clear and simple wording and to make your disclaimer visible in your video or in the video description.